Brooke, we need to speak with you about the branch cash audits before you leave today.
Is this connected to the audit review after my resignation?
Once is a mistake. Twice is suspicious. Brooke McDonough did this every single month for 7 months straight and left a falsified paper trail for every single one. The handcuffs are coming out before this footage ends.
We've identified several cash discrepancies that require your explanation.
I handled hundreds of rencanations. I'd have to see exactly what you're referring to.
She had already started rehearsing the answer in her head. The federal agents standing on her front porch in East Mesa weren't there for an answer. They were there for the indictment. 12 counts. $655,000. 7 months of falsified monthly audits that turned a Wells Fargo branch on East Southern Avenue into her personal cash machine. By the time Senior Judge Rosalind Silver finished reading the sentence, Brooke McDonough would have 48 months in federal prison to explain how a branch manager hollowed out her own vault and signed the paperwork that said nothing was missing. Before we go any further, I want to ask you something. Have you ever sat across from a branch manager, signed a stack of paperwork, and trusted that the person on the other side of that desk was doing their job? Drop a comment and let me know what bank you use and how long you've trusted them with your money. And if you're not subscribed yet, now is the time. We cover one of these every single week, and the next case is already on the desk. Brooke Renee Taylor was born in Yuma, Arizona, in November of 1990. Her father, Glenn Taylor, was a junior loan officer at a credit union near the Marine Corps Air Station. Her mother, Lorraine, was a dental hygienist in a strip mall practice off South Avenue B. The family lived in a beige stucco rental 2 blocks from the elementary school. Money was tight, but money was always counted. Glenn kept a spiral notebook on the kitchen counter where every grocery receipt, every utility bill, every dollar in or out of the household was entered by hand. Brooke was 8 years old the first time her father let her add up the week's expenses. She wrote the totals in pencil, in small, careful columns. He told her she had good handwriting for a numbers girl. She remembered that for a long time. In 2003, the family moved to Mesa. Glenn had taken a senior position at a larger credit union near Fiesta Mall, and the household income climbed enough that Lorraine could cut back to part-time work. Brooke entered Mesa High School the following fall. She joined the business club her sophomore year. The faculty advisor wrote on her junior year evaluation that she was exceptionally organized, comfortable with figures, and a natural leader of small teams. She graduated in 2008 with a 3.7 grade point average and enrolled at Arizona State University's W.P. Carey School of Business on a partial tuition scholarship. She chose finance. She worked through college as a barista at a Dutch Bros on Apache Boulevard and as a part-time receptionist at a Tempe orthodontist's office. She graduated in May of 2012, 21 years old, with a finance degree and 1 job offer already on the table. Wells Fargo had recruited at the Carey Career Fair the previous October. The position was teller, second shift, at a branch on Mill Avenue in Tempe. The starting wage was $13.50 an hour. She accepted by phone the same afternoon the offer came in. Her first 6 months on the line were exemplary. The branch manager at the Mill Avenue location, a woman named Patricia Engelhart, wrote in Brooke's first formal review that she was detail-oriented, deeply trustworthy with cash drawer reconciliation, and showed strong aptitude for the operational rhythm of a retail bank. She was promoted to lead teller in 2014. She was promoted to personal banker in 2016. She passed the internal exams for assistant branch manager in 2018, the same year she married a Mesa contractor named Cole McDonough and changed her name from Taylor to McDonough at the courthouse downtown. Her co-workers held a small lunch for her in the back office. There was a grocery store sheet cake with her new name spelled out in blue frosting. In November of 2020, in the middle of the second wave of the pandemic, Wells Fargo promoted her to branch manager. The branch was on East Southern Avenue in Mesa, 8 miles from the house she shared with her husband. Her starting salary in the new role was $81,000 a year, plus a discretionary annual bonus tied to the branch's deposit growth, account opening totals, and audit performance. She was 30 years old. She was, by every measure that mattered to the regional district office, exactly the kind of branch manager Wells Fargo wanted in front of customers in Maricopa County. She had the resume. She had the look. She had the metrics. What she also had, by the time the second pandemic winter began to thaw, was a problem. The problem was not the job. The problem was the math at home. The contracting business her husband ran had been hit hard by the residential slowdown the previous spring. There were unfinished kitchen jobs in Gilbert with material costs already on a credit card. There was a truck note. There was a mortgage on a stucco 4-bedroom in East Mesa that they had stretched to qualify for at the top of the previous market. Brooke McDonough sat at her dining room table in the spring of 2021 with a yellow legal pad and a ballpoint pen and added up what they owed against what they brought in. The columns did not balance. They had not balanced for almost a year. She knew, sitting there, what she had access to. A Wells Fargo retail branch in Maricopa County moves a remarkable amount of physical cash through a remarkably small number of hands. The East Southern Avenue location McDonough managed served roughly 1,400 regular consumer customers and a few dozen small business accounts in the surrounding strip of East Mesa. On a busy Friday, the branch processed close to $500,000 in over-the-counter and ATM transactions. 2 drive-up ATMs at the front of the parking lot held cash cassettes that were refilled on a rotating schedule. The vault inside the branch held the operating reserve. The architecture that is supposed to keep that cash honest is the monthly audit cycle. On a fixed day each calendar month, the branch reconciles its physical cash position against the bank's accounting records. Vault contents are counted by hand and entered into the bank's internal reconciliation system. ATM cassette contents are pulled, counted, and entered. Teller drawer totals are pulled, counted, and entered. The central system then compares the figures the branch entered against the transaction history pulled directly from the core ledger. Any gap, any meaningful variance, triggers escalation to the district operations manager, and beyond that, to corporate audit. There is a second layer. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, through its Office of Inspector General, has standing oversight authority over deposit-insured institutions. The FDIC-OIG investigates patterns of internal fraud at member banks. And there is a third layer, the Federal Currency Transaction Report. Any cash deposit of more than $10,000 in a single business day at any U.S. bank automatically generates a CTR filing to the Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. The reports flag patterns, they flag round numbers, they flag the same name showing up at multiple branches in short windows. There was one architectural weakness that the entire monthly audit cycle quietly depended on. The branch manager, the person responsible for overall branch operations, was also the person who entered the reconciliation figures into the bank's system. The cash was counted by tellers and operations staff under her supervision. The numbers were signed off by her. The figures that went into the corporate system, the figures that the central ledger checked against, were figures the branch manager herself had personally approved. If the branch manager was honest, the system worked. If the branch manager was the bad actor, the system was checking her work against her own entries. It was, in the precise design of the monthly audit cycle, a closed loop that depended on the credentialed manager's integrity to function. Wells Fargo knew this. Every retail bank in the country knew this. The countermeasure was supposed to be the federal layer, CTR filings, FDIC-OIG audits, the eventual replacement of any branch manager who left, who would in the normal course of business open the vault and count. Brooke McDonough understood every layer. She had studied them. The first time she took cash was June 14th, 2021. It was a Monday. The branch had just completed its weekend deposit reconciliation, and the vault held more than $300,000 in operating reserve, plus the cash earmarked for the 2 drive-up ATMs. McDonough stayed late. She told the closing teller, a 23-year-old named Marisol Bertram, that she had quarterly reports to finish in the back office. Marisol set the alarm at 6:48 in the evening and waved goodbye through the glass. McDonough waited 11 minutes. Then she went into the vault. The dual control protocol required 2 employees to be present for any access to vault reserves. The protocol was not enforced for branch managers conducting after-hours operational review. She knew that. She had written that exception into the local procedural memo herself, the previous February. She pulled 3 banded stacks of $100 bills, $8,000 total, and slid them into a brown leather tote she had brought from home. She rearranged the remaining stacks to make the gap invisible from the front of the shelf. She closed the vault. She reset the alarm. She left at 7:03 p.m. The next morning, she opened the branch at 8:45. She greeted the morning crew. She walked the lobby. She refilled her coffee. At 11:17, she drove to a Wells Fargo branch on West Brown Road in Mesa, about 6 miles away. She used her personal ATM card. She deposited $9,400 in cash. The remaining $600 she kept in the tote. The pattern, once it started, escalated. In July, she took $12,000 across 2 trips into the vault. In August, she took $23,000. In September, with the branch operating at full pre-holiday cash levels, she took $51,000 across 4 separate after-hours visits and 2 midday ATM cassette swaps that she logged into the system as routine maintenance. She told the operations specialist, a man named Devin Cho, that she would handle the cassette swap herself that month because corporate had asked branch managers to spot check the new tamper seals personally. Devin signed the log and went back to the teller line. The monthly audit was the cover. On the fixed reconciliation day in July, McDonough sat at her office computer and entered the vault count herself. The actual cash on hand was $12,000 short of what the bank's ledger said it should be. She entered the figure that matched the ledger. The bank's reconciliation system saw 2 matching numbers and cleared the cycle. She did the same in August, in September, in October, in November. By December, with the branch's holiday cash flow at its annual peak, the gap inside the vault and the 2 ATMs had grown to roughly $240,000. She entered the reconciled figure that the central ledger expected. The system cleared the cycle. No alert went out. No escalation flagged. Her quarterly bonus was approved. The personal deposits required their own architecture. She had learned, sometime in her first year at the bank, what a currency transaction report was and what triggered one. Any single cash deposit of more than $10,000 at any U.S. bank generated an automatic filing. She kept every deposit under that threshold. $9,400, $9,600, $8,800. She used 11 different Wells Fargo branches across the East Valley and a handful of Chase and Bank of America ATMs as well, rotating the locations so that no single branch's surveillance footage would show her face 4 times in a row. She made the deposits at lunch, between meetings, on the way home. She kept a small mental ledger of which branch she had used most recently and stayed away from it for at least 8 days. She bought a new Lexus RX in October of 2021. She paid $41,000 in cash, broken across 3 certified check trips to the dealership over a single week. She paid down the residential mortgage by $60,000 in November. She paid off her husband's truck note. She paid off 2 of his outstanding contracting credit cards. She bought a Peloton, a new patio set, and a hot tub for the backyard. She told her husband her year-end bonus had been larger than expected. He did not ask follow-up questions. By the end of January 2022, the total cash she had removed from the branch had passed $600,000. The audit cycle entries she had made into the bank's reconciliation system showed a vault and ATM cash position that matched the central ledger to the dollar. Every monthly cycle had cleared without flag. Every internal review had passed. The architecture, in the precise way it had been designed, was working exactly as it had been built to work. It was checking her entries against her entries. She knew the system would catch up with her the moment somebody else opened the vault and counted. She decided to resign on February 4th, 2022. She sat at her desk in the small glass-walled office at the back of the branch and typed a 2-paragraph letter to the district operations manager. She cited family reasons. She offered a 2-week transition. She copied the human resources liaison at the regional office. She printed 2 copies, signed them, walked one of them across the lobby to the assistant branch manager, Karina Velasquez, and dropped the other in the interbank mail. Her last day was February 18th, 2022. The branch threw her a small farewell at the round table in the break room. There was a grocery store sheet cake. Marisol cried a little. Devin gave her a card the whole staff had signed. McDonough hugged each of them. She handed her branch keys to Karina. She drove out of the parking lot at 5:51 in the evening. She did not look back at the building. For 9 days, nothing happened. The replacement branch manager was a 42-year-old transferred in from a Wells Fargo branch in Chandler. His name in the internal directory was Marcus Whitfield. He arrived on the morning of February 28th, met the staff, walked the floor, and reviewed the branch's most recent reconciliation file. The numbers looked clean. He scheduled his first vault inventory for the following Monday. That Monday was March 7th, 2022. Whitfield, accompanied by Karina under the dual control protocol, opened the vault at 9:14 in the morning. They counted the operating reserve by hand. They counted the ATM cassette inventory. They entered the figures into the reconciliation system. They recounted, because the first count came up short. They counted a third time. The third count matched the first. The vault and ATM cash position was $297,000 below what the bank's central ledger said it should be. Whitfield closed the vault. He walked to his office. He called the district operations manager. The district operations manager called regional security. Regional security called corporate audit. Corporate audit called the FDIC Office of Inspector General before the close of business that day. 3 other branch employees were placed on administrative leave that week, pending investigation. Karina Velasquez, the assistant branch manager. Marisol Bertram, the lead teller. Devin Cho, the operations specialist. All 3 had been at McDonough's farewell. All 3 had signed the reconciliation reports across the previous 7 months. All 3 were told to stay home, not to discuss the matter with anyone, and to wait for the bank's internal investigators to schedule their interviews. Karina, who was 6 months pregnant, sat at her kitchen table in Gilbert that night and cried. Brooke McDonough was at that same moment sitting by her new pool in East Mesa, 2 iced teas on the patio table, telling her husband she was thinking about taking a few months off before looking for her next role. The FDIC Office of Inspector General assigned the file to Special Agent in Charge Ryan Corner's team out of the Phoenix Field Office on March 11, 2022. The Mesa Police Department, under Chief Dan Butler, opened a parallel state-level financial crimes investigation the same week. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Arizona was looped in by the end of the month. The investigators worked the file from 3 directions. First, the branch records. Wells Fargo's corporate audit pulled every monthly reconciliation McDonough had entered between June of 2021 and February of 2022. They compared her entries against the underlying transaction ledger. The pattern was immediate. Every month, beginning in June 2021, the branch manager's reconciliation entries had matched the expected ledger figure to the dollar, while the actual physical cash audit performed by Whitfield's incoming team showed the variance accumulating month over month. The smoking gun was not hidden in a file. It was the file. 7 monthly reconciliation reports, each signed by Brooke McDonough, each falsified. Second, the ATM surveillance. The FDIC OIG forensic team pulled deposit records under the suspect's name and former name across every Wells Fargo, Chase, and Bank of America branch in the East Valley between June 2021 and February 2022. They cross-referenced the deposit dates and times against the branch surveillance footage. They built a deposit log. 46 cash deposits across the 8-month window. 43 of them between $8,000 and $9,900. 3 of them at $9,950 exactly. The pattern was, in the formal language of the structuring statute, prima facie. Third, the spending. Investigators traced the Lexus RX purchase at a dealership in Tempe, paid in 3 certified check tranches drawn from cash deposits at 3 different branches. They traced the $60,000 mortgage principal payment to Wells Fargo's residential mortgage division in November 2021. They traced the hot tub purchase from a Phoenix retailer, paid in cash. They traced the patio set. They traced the Peloton. They traced every dollar of the roughly $645,000 she had moved through her personal accounts and her household between June 2021 and February 2022. In June of 2022, a federal grand jury in Phoenix returned a sealed indictment against Brooke Renee McDonough on 12 counts. 1 count of embezzlement by a bank employee, 6 counts of transactional money laundering, 5 counts of structuring transactions to evade reporting requirements. The arrest warrant was approved that afternoon. Before we get into what happened the morning the agents knocked on her door, I have to say this. The investigators who built this case spent more than 3 months pulling reconciliation reports, surveillance footage, and deposit logs to map every single dollar she moved. If you've made it this far, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and consider subscribing. These are the cases that don't make the national news, and they deserve to be told properly. The arrest came on the morning of June 23, 2022. It was 7:14 a.m. The temperature in East Mesa was already 91 degrees. Brooke McDonough was in her kitchen in workout clothes, pouring cold brew into a glass over ice. Her husband had left for a job site 20 minutes earlier. 2 FDIC OIG special agents and 2 Mesa police detectives knocked on the front door. She opened it wearing house slippers, holding the glass. The lead agent introduced himself and showed his credentials. "Brooke McDonough, we have a federal arrest warrant. Can you step outside, please?" She did not move from the doorway. The glass was still in her hand. "What is this about?" "Ma'am, we'll explain everything outside. We need you to step out, set the glass down, and turn around. Am I being arrested in my own house? You're being placed under arrest on a federal warrant out of the District of Arizona. 12 counts. I need you to set the glass down, ma'am." She looked past the agent at the 2 detectives standing behind him. Her face went still. She set the glass on the small entry table by the door. Her hand was shaking slightly. She turned around. The agent walked her out into the morning sun and read her rights on the driveway in front of her neighbor's house. The neighbor, a retired schoolteacher named Helen, watched from behind her front blinds. McDonough asked 2 questions before the cruiser door closed. "Can I call my husband? From processing, ma'am. Am I going to prison?" The agent did not answer. She was arraigned that afternoon in U.S. District Court for the District of Arizona. The presiding magistrate set bond at $100,000, secured by the equity in her home. She posted by the end of the week. Her husband sat in the back of the courtroom and did not speak to her after the hearing. She retained a Phoenix white-collar defense attorney named Patrick Hellerman. Hellerman is a former federal prosecutor with 22 years of practice and a reputation for negotiating clean plea deals in fraud cases. He did not negotiate one here. McDonough refused to plead. She maintained through every pretrial conference that the reconciliation errors were the result of system entries made by other branch employees, and that she had been set up by colleagues looking to push her out of the manager role. The case went to trial on November 30th, 2025. Senior U.S. District Judge Roslyn O. Silver presided. Assistant United States attorneys handled the prosecution under the supervision of U.S. Attorney Timothy Corshane. The government called 19 witnesses across 9 trial days. Marcus Whitfield, the replacement branch manager who had performed the first honest count, took the jury through the morning of March 7th, 2022, step by step. Karina Velasquez, whose 3-month administrative leave had cost her a planned maternity transition and a promotion track, described what it had felt like to learn that her name was attached to falsified reconciliation reports she had never been allowed to verify against the actual cash. An FDIC OIG forensic accountant walked the jury through every falsified reconciliation entry side by side with the underlying ledger, projected on the courtroom screen 1 month at a time. A Wells Fargo corporate audit director explained the architecture of the monthly cycle and the precise way McDonough had defeated it. Karina Velasquez gave the victim impact statement at sentencing the following June. She was holding her 16-month-old son when she stood up. She said she had been placed on administrative leave at 6 months pregnant. She said her husband had taken a second job to cover the gap. She said the bank had cleared her by the end of summer 2022, but that the next branch she was assigned to never quite trusted her, and that she had left the industry the following spring. She said she did not understand how someone she had hugged at a farewell party had been willing to let her career hang in the wind for that long. The jury deliberated for 9 hours across 2 days. On December 11, 2025, they returned a guilty verdict on all 12 counts. Sentencing was set for June 10, 2026. Judge Silver was 69 years old at the time of the hearing, with 30 years on the federal bench. She addressed McDonough directly before imposing sentence. Embezzlement is not a victimless crime. You took $655,000 from the institution that trusted you with its keys, and you did it through a cycle of monthly falsifications that you, as branch manager, were uniquely positioned to perform. You signed every one of those reconciliation reports. You knew what you were doing each time you entered a number that did not match the cash in your own vault. The architecture of branch banking in this country depends on the integrity of the person whose signature appears on those reports. You broke that architecture deliberately, and you kept breaking it for 7 months. 3 of your colleagues spent the spring of 2022 on administrative leave because of conduct that was entirely yours. One of them was pregnant. The harm here is not measured only in dollars. The sentence was 48 months in federal custody, 3 years of supervised release, and a restitution order of $655,000 payable to Wells Fargo. McDonough was remanded to the custody of the U.S. Marshals at the conclusion of the hearing. She was designated to the federal prison camp at Bryan, Texas, a minimum security women's facility about 90 miles northwest of Houston. Her projected release date is in 2030. Outside the courthouse, U.S. Attorney Corshane spoke briefly to reporters. He said McDonough's conduct had caused real harm to her employer, to the integrity of the financial system, and to innocent co-workers whose careers were placed at risk by her actions. Special Agent in Charge Corner said the sentencing served as a stern warning to anyone considering victimizing financial institutions. Chief Butler of the Mesa Police Department thanked the federal partners. Inside the courtroom, after the bench had cleared, Karina Velasquez stood up with her son still on her hip and walked out without looking at the defendant. The seat behind the prosecution table, where Cole McDonough had sat through every day of the 2-week trial, was empty by the time the marshals walked his wife through the side door.